there is an unbelievable amount of despair. There is a cynicism that exists in our community, especially in our youth community today, about marriage and the prospect of marriage. Marriage is a very bleak topic in the minds of a lot of our youth today. And I'll tell you where this comes from. And more importantly, especially our youngsters, our young brothers and sisters, who might be a little bit more concerned about their relationship with Allah, about their deen, about their spirituality, they, a lot of times, are very cynical, they're very pessimistic, they're very, they're not very optimistic, they're not very hopeful about the prospect of getting married and enjoying a loving relationship one day and having a very fulfilling marriage one day. And let me talk about where this comes from. I kind of took upon myself to talk about some of the maybe heavier stuff today, like in the terms, not so much fun stuff today. But I did think that it was necessary for us to go ahead and tackle it, because it gets at the core of some of the issues that we have. And that is, we need to redefine the idea of marriage in our heads. I'll talk about myself, and I think this goes for the majority of the younger folks in the room here today. We are the children of an immigrant generation. All right? People who came from a very different place at a very different time. And a very different culture. Completely different. And today our culture, our environment, our time and our place is very, very different than from where our parents came from. Especially at the time when they got married. All right? It's a very different world today. It's a very different culture environment today. And a lot of times we base, our expectations of marriage and married life off of what our parents maybe experienced or what their situation, their scenario was. At the same time, there's another major issue that we have in our communities. May Allah protect everyone, and I hope this is not the situation, but a lot of times, maybe it's somebody's own parents. Maybe it is somebody has an uncle or an aunt or someone in their family who did not have a very fulfilling, happy marriage. And sometimes they're at a point in their life where, for all intents and purposes, they're basically roommates at that point. It's a very sad situation, but it happens, unfortunately. What a lot of times young people do is they base their idea of marriage off of that one bad case that they have in front of them. That's what marriage results in. And I don't want to get married, or I don't want to take this more Islamic route of getting married. Why? Because that's what it results in. That's what the consequence is. That marriage basically means, I don't know who I'm marrying. I've never seen the person before. I don't know her name or his name. I don't know anything about them. And then randomly, some hairy guy's going to come up here and he's going to read a bunch of Arabic stuff and then pronounce this married. And then after that, we're going to come face to face and I'm going to realize I don't like this person. Right? That's the idea. That's the very bleak picture. That's the nightmare that's waiting for us on the other side, unfortunately. A lot of people think that way. What we have to do is we have to reconstruct the idea of marriage that we have in our heads. Because what happens is one extreme breeds the other. So you have one extreme idea, or unfortunately maybe you do have certain extreme examples of bad, flawed, relationships and marriages in the community, or even in your own family, extended family. So what do? We resort to the opposite extreme. And the opposite extreme, unfortunately today for us, can be summarized into one word, and that one word is twilight. Alright? That's the opposite extreme. Where it's like we feel like we have to explore, whether it be dating, premarital relations, illicit relationships. We have to explore that, because if I don't do that, I'm not going to be happy. Because God knows Kim Kardashian was very happy for 72 days. SubhanAllah, I often wonder, I often think, in our day and age, yes, with all the temptations and all the confusion that's out there, when you have such glaring examples, in front of you, where these people have failed marriage after failed relationship, would these people become empty, hollow shells of themselves? When people will reconstruct, these people are pretty much 80% plastic and 20% flesh at this point. When we have these glaring examples in front of us today, we have to employ enough common sense to be able to see the truth playing out in front of our own eyes.